I'm doing this J53 model guitar, and the basic theme of this guitar is black and white. Black trim, the light color, the white, if you will, of the curly maple. And I'm going to do something a little different with the back. I'm going to do curved glue joints. These lines represent where this center panel will be black, and these outer portions will be the curly maple. So I've made up this panel of a nice jet black. This is a torrefied wood, and this curly maple to match the rims. And as we progress through the video, I'll show you how I create these curved glue joints. I've cut the pattern out into the 3 individual pieces, and now I'm going to transfer these lines to this piece of plywood. I'm going to do one at a time, and then we'll go from there. I cut my original pattern on a bandsaw, and I have carefully sanded this so that I've got a nice even curve. We don't want any bumps or any interruptions or obstructions in it. And I have double face taped it to another piece of plywood because I'm going to essentially copy it. And I'm going to do that by cutting it out with this 3/8 inch bit in my shaper. And I have a top bearing that's going to read this upper pattern, and it's going to copy this pattern, but it's going to make another mirror image pattern exactly 3/8 of an inch away from it. And that's important to know. You hold on to that. You'll need that later on in this video. So now I've laid out the first pattern on the material for the guitar back, and I've traced out that curve, and I'm going to saw that out on the bandsaw, but I don't have to be perfect about it. So now I have my maple cut out, and I cut it out to the line of my pattern, but as I mentioned, I didn't have to be perfect about it. In fact, I want to stay a little bit away from that line to the waist side. And so now I'm going to double face tape my A pattern, and I'm going to do that, probably a little hard time seeing this, but I'm going to do that in a position that is 3/8 of an inch away from that edge that I cut. And that's because the bit that I used to cut the original pattern was 3/8 of an inch in diameter. And here's where, and I said you need to remember that, because now I'm going to use a different bearing to compensate for the thickness of that bit. The first cut that I made when I made the patterns was with this router bit, which with its bearing cuts exactly the same shape as the shape that the bearing reads. But as I mentioned before, this is what you need to remember, is that the two patterns are now separated by the diameter of the bit. They're separated by 3/8 of an inch. So I've replaced the bit with exactly the same bit, but I have put on it a 1 1/8 inch outer bearing. And when that reads the pattern, it's going to compensate for the diameter of the router bit, and will cut on my workpiece. It'll make a cut 3/8 of an inch away from that pattern, just exactly. So let's see if we can make that work. I want this piece of maple and this piece of torrefied black wood to mate like so. I've placed the pattern on there where it needs to be, and I have traced it out here with a silver pencil. And I'm going to cut this off camera and then come back. Now I have this band sawn to a reasonable curve, but it's not perfected by any means. And I'm going to put this pattern on here, and I've taken pains to register this pattern very carefully. We want this just right. We don't want to waste much material, but we need to cut every linear inch with that shaper cutter. All right, so now we're going to take that to the shaper, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. I've changed my routing. So now, upon completion of these operations, we have a very nicely fitting curved glue joint. So we're not done. I'm going to use now the other side of this pattern to generate the rest of the back, which will be in this maple, same as this, the match. And I'm not going to film any of that. That would be a little on the redundant side. So when I get this done, I'll report back to you. Well, we started here with paper patterns developed from the customer's preferences and ideas. We went to all of these patterns, as you can see here, done in plywood, to a finished back, 3 pieces, curved joints in curly maple, and torrefied some kind of wood that Luther's Mercantile doesn't mention what it is. Still, there it is.